Good morning, everybody. Thank you for joining us today. My name is Jennifer Hurst, and we will be having our MasterControl sponsored webinar titled Adopting a Data-Centric Quality Mindset. That'll be presented today by Sue Marchant. She's our Product Management Director at MasterControl. Before we get started, let's dive into a few things. You probably noticed that Sue and I are not in the same room. We're actually in our houses, staged up in a nice little area to present to you. In the midst of COVID-19, we wanted to maintain safe principles, but also still provide you with some great content. So apologize in advance for any technical difficulties or anything strange that might happen with our recording today. A couple of housekeeping items as well before we get started. There is a chat box in the bottom of your screen. If you have any technical difficulties today, go ahead and just launch the chat icon, type your issue, and we will get with you as soon as possible and try to get that resolved. There's also a Q&A icon on the bottom of your screen. If you have any questions during the webinar, please feel free to submit your questions at any time, and then we'll be addressing those at the end of the presentation today. So with that, I'm going to go ahead and turn it over to Sue.
We're excited to welcome you all here today. The focus of the presentation today is going to be changing from a document-centric view of quality to data-centric quality. We know that quality is no stranger to data. In fact, more product-related data comes through the quality organization than almost any other department in the organization. And yet we are really disconnected from non-document oriented data. The time has come, we believe, to really connect and integrate data to be able to query, track, and trend on it. It's really hard to run analytics on a Word document. So document-centric quality might check the boxes for industry and regulatory requirements, but data-centric quality will propel innovation, efficiency, and constant improvement. And we're excited to talk to you about that today. So key takeaways, by the time we're done with this presentation, we hope you'll really have a good understanding of what the ripple effect is of bad or missing quality data, what impact that has on your organization. We are going to talk a lot about the common challenges and missed opportunities of document-centric quality when you're really focused on moving documents around in your organization and not on what the content of that document actually is. We're going to talk about the potential role and business impact of data-centric quality, how that can really help you to transform and change and improve your organization and how you work. And we're going to talk about how technology can support and accelerate that transition. So let's move forward. That's me. I am the Product Management Director of Analytics and AI here at MasterControl. I have been in the tech industry for 19 years. For the last 10 years, I've been focused on data and AI initiatives. I worked at a startup called Data-Centricity for many years, where we used natural language processing and machine learning and text analytics to really help customers understand the value of the insights that were locked in their unstructured data. So let's talk about... Oh, sorry, go ahead.
So I think that it's such an exciting time right now for quality departments. This is we're on the verge of turning quality into a predictive function. They will have more impact on business insights now than they ever have before.
Absolutely. So let's talk a little bit. We're going to begin talking about visualizing a new data-centered quality paradigm and what that means for your organization. And, there's lots of $5 buzzwords in there, but it really is such an important area of focus for every organization. So let's dive into what that really means. I'm not sure how many of you are as old as I am, but cell phones have gone through an incredible transformation. I remember when I got my first cell phone, it was this giant block, and it was so exciting to have it in my hand. It didn't have a cord on it. I didn't have to talk to my boyfriend in the bathroom. I could leave the house and talk to him wherever I wanted. It was just amazing. I thought that was the most exciting that phone technology was ever going to get. But we went from that to those little flip phones that had an amazing new capability where we could send words to each other. by clicking on a numerical key several times. And that was so exciting. It no longer was just a voice, but you could magically communicate through text on your phone. Then we had smartphones, and we all, I think, really know that that shifted the value from voice to data, because you can do so much more on a phone now than just text or communicate via voice. You can do your banking, you can get information no matter where you are, you can get directions. It becomes really this personal, portable computer that we carry around in our pocket. Now you can do even more, because that connection is not just you and your interactions with the phone, but you're connecting to other devices through your phone and manipulating that data as well. So, I have a Fitbit, and I can track how many steps or how few steps I take every day. I can turn off the lights in my house from my office. I can check on my son and make sure he's doing his homework all through my phone. So there's been this huge transition where the phone started with one purpose and moved to another. We're going to see a similar transition in life sciences. We used to be focused really on a clipboard and taking those documents around and filing those documents manually. Then we shifted to digital, where we suddenly had access to a lot of new capabilities, and we could do things like electronically version the document, create workflows for documents, control the access rights to documents. Lots of exciting new capabilities, but all very focused on the document. So the shift to digital, though, has really created a lot of new information. All of that digital exhaust of our activities is creating kind of an endless array of data. If you think about it, we've got data from machine sensors, we have data from manufacturing lines, data from quality events, data from workflow processes, data from the complaints filed by our consumers, and even data locked inside of those documents that we're tracking. So over the next few years, we're going to see a huge burst of innovation as we all work together to collect that data, to make sense of it, and to use it to change our businesses. So let's talk for a minute about some of the challenges of document dependency and disconnected documents. When we talk about document dependency, we're not just talking about paper documents. We're also talking about information that is locked in a legacy system that you can't access, or that's spread across a variety of systems in your organization, where accessing that information involves a lot of really laborious searching across systems. We're also talking about data that's locked inside of the documents themselves. If your compliance information is located inside of documents that are siloed in disparate systems, that's non-searchable or otherwise inaccessible, how much is that really costing your organization? So that's what we mean by the document disconnect. And we can talk about some common problems. I love the title here, The Noteworthy Perils of Disconnected Documents. It sounds like an action adventure movie, but I think the point is valid. The consequences of disconnected documents and data can really be dire for your organization. So we're going to stick with that. It is a peril. I'm going to read you a couple of statistics. According to a study by Vance and Bourne, business user respondents spend on average 7 hours per week making decisions based on data. And alarmingly, they also lose 8 hours over that time frame simply searching for, acquiring, entering, or moving around their data. On a similar note, on the average, IT decision makers spend an equal amount of time connecting, integrating, or maintaining data, about 5 hours, as they are focusing on new, more strategic initiatives, also about 5 hours. And, lastly, analysis showed that business users in the US spend over 35 minutes per day just moving data from one system to another. So if you can imagine the amount of error that's introduced as people try to manipulate and evaluate data developed in different systems with different metrics, different scales across time zones, different data dictionaries and calculations with no single source of truth, can you imagine the impact on an organization's ability to make good decisions based on that data? Can you imagine how much time they're losing and the impact on their ability to really innovate and develop new products and services and get them to market quickly, or troubleshoot and understand the blockers and risks? You have one inefficiency leading to another. You have those disconnected documents and processes, decreasing organizational effectiveness and increasing the likelihood that you're going to have a quality event. So if you think about that, along with all of the time your staff is spending to figure out if they have accurate information and how accurate their documents are, your company is really wasting resources that could be used on other critical projects. All right, so innovation blind spots. Dr. Amy Abernathy is the principal deputy commissioner at the FDA, and she said that about 50%, if not more, of the critical details we need for research are trapped in unstructured documents. 50%, and I would guess that that is probably conservative. Can you imagine coming into work one day and finding out that half of your organization's data had been wiped from the system? What kind of panic would that cause? But we operate like that every day. Life science companies that want to streamline their innovation and really want to make progress need to access the data trapped in their documents so they can connect that data across the product lifecycle and get the critical information they need to make better and faster decisions. I think I mentioned this before, but it is really hard to run meaningful predictive analytics on a Word document unless you start analyzing the data inside of the document. And we have that technology today. It used to sound like that was really far away, but that's the new reality. Natural language processing, machine learning, and AI are all gaining maturity, and they've expanded your options for really leveraging that data and getting information. We have the ability to extract text, to understand unstructured documents, and to predict problems before they happen. So all of these technologies working together are going to open new avenues for streamlining quality and compliance processes. But if you want to participate in that, your data has to be digital and it has to be accessible. If it all exists in different systems that don't talk to each other, then you're limiting what you can understand. If it all exists inside of your documents that you can't parse, you are operating with that blindfold on. You are limiting your insight.
You know, Sue, we are in the middle of a situation right now with the COVID-19 pandemic, and I don't think innovation and discovery has ever been more important as it is right now. The speed to get either testing, therapies, or vaccines is imperative in the situation that we're in right now. And if you have not captured and stored and tracked it and trended your data, it's going to take you much longer to get to the point where you can actually be effective in fighting something like this.
I agree. We have to direct our efforts toward improving access to actionable, accurate data and enhancing our ability to analyze that data. So, modern quality management systems are really designed to help you connect data across your company and across your organization. The management of quality across the product lifecycle is going to become more complicated, though, if you don't have a connected digital system. Let me give you an example. Without an integrated quality management system, it's not uncommon to find disconnected quality event management tasks, for example. A CAPA might be triggered by an OOS, a nonconformance, audit findings, customer complaints, or a trend analysis. And with manual systems, those sources can be disconnected, which makes data collection really slow, incomplete, or even worse, inaccurate. It's far better to have an integrated process throughout the entire organization where you can understand the impact of quality events, for example, on your production schedule. You could understand which suppliers and which materials are more highly correlated with defects and deviations. You can understand what impact planned deviations have on cycle time. You just really have the ability to understand these things across your organization and not within just the context of let me handle this quality event. When you get a spike in complaints, you can trace that directly to a material substitution on the line. So, when you're trying to decide if you should file a CAPA, you'll automatically have all of the data about prior events at your fingertips, along with information about the impact of that event, so that you can assess risk in a more informed way. And that's just the benefit of integrated QEM. An integrated system across your full life cycle will bring even more benefit. And I think that the true future of quality is going to lie in that data intelligence, and having a reliable software platform can really help the company be ready for a future where data is king or queen. All right, going beyond a document-centered approach. When we talk about that, what it really means is moving past that mindset that documents should be the focus. It means removing the limitations a document focus will have on your ability to be predictive. And that's really important. It means aligning with a data-driven approach that regulatory agencies are beginning to take when assessing risk. Let's look at that in more detail. So there's still a gap between the perceived value of data analytics and what most organizations are doing to actually utilize technology that helps them to collect and understand that data. According to a recent Gartner report, most companies' data optimization projects have stalled because they are unwilling to invest in technologies that will enable them to tap into their unstructured data. So that's a lot of words to say that a lot of us are talking the talk about the value of data, but we're not walking the walk. So, let's discuss for just a minute what unstructured data actually is. We've brought that up a lot and not really talked about it. When you think about structured data, you can think of it as the kinds of things that will slide really easily into a spreadsheet. Dates, dollar amounts, addresses, Boolean true false kind of information. Unstructured data is unstructured. It's messier. Unstructured data could be an image. It could be a voice file. It could be a Word document that's full of narrative, a text message, or a tweet. And it hasn't been easy traditionally or historically for computer systems to deal with it, to store it, let alone understand it. So we've tended to ignore it. We put it inside of a wrapper, like a Word document, and I sound like I'm picking on Word documents, but I love them, so I'm not. And we store it somewhere. And we think, well, if I need that document someday, I know where it is. I'll go look at it. I'll find out what's inside of it. And the problem is that we don't go around opening up old documents very often. We don't spend our time reading back through old documents to refresh our memory about things that have happened in the past. We don't even do that with current documents. Someone creates a document or fills out a form and they file it, and that's it. The organization never really has the opportunity to learn from what's inside. And that's where natural language processing comes in and is so important. It allows us to analyze text and understand the content as an organization. It's not, that a particular human has that information stored in their memory banks. It's that we understand that as a company. When I worked at Intensity, the text analytics firm, we worked with a lot of hospitality companies, and they all had these customer comment cards, thousands of them that were coming in daily across the globe. And the idea was that local managers would collect them at each location. Ostensibly, they would read through them and take action, in theory, and then the comment cards would get filed away. Meanwhile, their NPS scores were in the toilet, and they weren't sure why. They weren't getting good survey engagement, and people in the various executive suites started to realize that they had this wealth of information coming in each day on the comment cards. So they started analyzing it as a company using our NLP technology. And we would take hundreds of thousands of comments, parse the content, and give them back actionable insight. 5,000 people said your beds are too hard. 3,000 people said the room was dirty. 2,000 said your breakfast was disgusting. They could break that down by region, by state, by location, by floor. Suddenly they had this wealth of information about how to turn things around. They could send in thousands of comments and get back actionable insight. And that's what's coming for quality. Think about how that would work over your complaint data, over your quality event data. Predictive statistical modeling combined with natural language processing technologies mean that we're going to be able to work out what will happen in the future by measuring and understanding as much as we possibly can about what's already happened, what happened yesterday, what happened today, what's happening right this minute, and understanding it automatically.
Sue, when you talked about that hospitality example, that's really, that's a life or death situation for that company. I mean, that's the difference if you succeed or you don't succeed. And that is, I think, what we kind of said at the beginning, that quality is really at just starting to tap into this, and it's gonna change the way companies in life sciences do business.
Absolutely.
And hopefully for the better.
Yeah, I mean, along those lines, with natural language understanding, or, that's another way that people refer to natural language processing, you are going to be able to take a look at every complaint and every deviation and every nonconformance. Everything that will represent a risk to your organization, you'll be able to automatically assess and get back that actionable information telling you where to focus. You're going to get insight into where your organization isn't in compliance. You'll know how frequently something is occurring and what the impact of it was. You're not going to have to rely on the personal knowledge of your people resources and what they remember and what they were aware of. You will have that information that you need to holistically assess risk, and you'll be able to access all of that information that's currently locked up in those documents. One of my AI colleagues, Jean Paoli, talks a lot about document dysfunction, and what is meant by that. What document dysfunction looks like is a bank with thousands of loan documents, but no visibility into the terms and conditions that impact the value of those loans. Or a government agency with hundreds of project agreements that have to be audited and updated due to a regulatory change, but no idea where to start. So I would add that it's a life sciences company with thousands of documents safely stored in a vault, but no idea what's in them. I would argue that it's a company that's been meticulous about documenting every complaint, but has no real idea about what trends might be represented in that data. It's a manufacturing company that tracks supplier quality and product defects, but can't correlate them because they don't have a way to understand that data together. All of these potentially useful insights are getting lost in this rising tide of disconnected documents, email, Slack conversations, voice-to-text messages, so much data coming at us and no way to understand it. And that sheer volume and opacity of the documents makes it really hard to ensure quality, consistency, accountability, and regulatory compliance. But when unstructured data becomes structured through our systems, then it is accessible, it's searchable, it's available, it's relevant, it's something we can use to make better decisions. Just a quick note here. The companies we talk to sometimes really worry that if they start pursuing the bleeding edge of technology, they're going to run afoul of regulators. But the opposite is actually true. We're finding that regulators are adopting new data-driven approaches. They are also shifting from this one-size-fits-all approach and approach to risk and compliance to one that's really data-driven. Regulators are actually going to be at the forefront of this. They will be taking an approach that favors assessing risk in a more intelligent way, in a way where they really can look at, where does the data say we have risk? That regulatory stance will place added importance on life sciences companies' quality data while also increasing its value. The Associate Center Director for Digital Health at the FDA said, if the volume and pace of digital transformation continues to remain the way it is, the existing regulatory approach won't work. There is a disconnect between the speed, iterative development, and ubiquitous connected nature of digital health technologies and the existing regulatory structures and processes. The current regulatory approach is not well suited to support that fast pace of development. Companies are not the only ones who are struggling with digital transformation. The regulators are also having difficulty keeping pace. Everyone is going to have to change in order to deal with the reality of the amount of data our systems are generating. All right, charting a clear path to digital and data maturity. Let's think a little bit about a holistic approach to data centricity. We are going to want to invest in platforms that improve data collection. We're going to need to improve the analytics comfort of quality and compliance professionals, and we'll be talking a little bit more about this on subsequent slides about each of these points. And then we're going to need to invest in QMS across the product lifecycle with the ability to query, track, and analyze data, leading to predictive analytics. There's a concept of a digital maturity scale, and we all fall somewhere along this scale, and we all take steps along this path. You don't have to move from the far left to the far right overnight. You take gradual, incremental steps, and each one of them can bring value to your organization. Each step is a win. Each step is progress, and it brings with it different benefits. So, you start on the left with where you're manual and you're using paper-based processes and you're somewhat reactive. You move to digital, where you're using a digital QMS. Paper is not as much of a factor in your organization. You're much more proactive. And then you really move to a connected perspective, where you have an integrated data platform across the product lifecycle that connects design data, supplier data, bill of materials, manufacturing information, document management, training. It's all tied together. And insight from one area of the lifecycle can be used to improve and inform another area of the product lifecycle. So, for example, defects resulting from deviations on a particular material could automatically funnel through to your supplier quality modules. So you know when to file a SCAR and you can make more informed quality decisions. You truly have that connected product lifecycle. You have a fully optimized QMS. And then over on the far right, we have truly intelligent systems that are utilizing scaled artificial intelligence, machine learning, and natural language processing, where you're really harnessing the value of your data and using it to improve your organization and to assess risk in an informed and comprehensive way. This is when your organization is really driven by data.
So, Sue, I know that Six Sigma training and Six Sigma methodologies are something very common in probably the audience that's listening today. And, Six Sigma is all about process improvement. And many years ago, I took some Six Sigma training. And my instructor would tell me the same thing every time we sat down to review my projects. He'd say, Jen, you're trying to boil the ocean. You need to take this into smaller steps. And when you have small success, that breeds more success. And I think that's exactly what you were kind of alluding to at the beginning, right? Don't try to boil the ocean and take all of this at once. Take little steps along the way and keep breeding that success.
I couldn't agree more. So let's talk about some of that, how you actually achieve that and what steps you can begin taking to achieve that incremental transformation. Connecting the 4 Ps, your people, processes, policies, and platforms. When you're trying to shift an organizational mindset beyond documents and toward data connectivity, that can seem overwhelming. That's how we think. We think about documents and it's really ingrained, but it is doable to shift your organization if you start taking steps toward creating a company culture where people value data. In a data culture, data is recognized as a key business asset, and it's used wherever it can be used at every level of the business to make improvements, whether that means better business decisions, better quality decisions, a more efficient supply chain, or new revenue opportunities. It really begins shifting the way that you think. To achieve that proficiency, you need effective leadership. Let's talk about some of the key traits of effective digital leaders. The shift to a data culture needs to be driven by those at the very top of your organization. There are a lot of companies that don't have a chief data officer, but you need to have a data champion on your executive team. We have members of the executive team who have stewardship over some of our most valuable assets, our finances, our people, and our brand. Why not over our data? Executive teams have to start recognizing the value of data as a legitimate economic asset that they have to take care of. Having a chief data officer leading the way shows that leadership is making a commitment to basing decisions in the way that the business is going to be run on data. And then the rest of the organization will follow. We have to make it clear that, data isn't just a small IT project that our DBAs are working on. This is about putting data at the heart of your business and using that information to transform everything that you do. The board, having a board that prioritizes the creation of innovative products and services is so important. There was a study by Harvard Business Review where they surveyed 5,000 board members from around the world, and they found that innovation was not a top strategic priority for most of them. It ranked 5th after far more conventional things like attracting talent, regulatory environment, and competitive threats. But what digital leaders have to help the board understand is that this is a competitive threat. AI and predictive analytics are here. Machine learning is here. Digital transformation is a competitive opportunity, and to compete, you have to be ready and willing to really embrace change and start making progress on your short and long-term goals. It is so important to have champions on the board who share a digital vision of the future. We have to start using these technologies in innovative ways to remain competitive. It's no longer just about innovation, it's about not getting left behind. And then, collaboration. Silos are the enemy of data sharing. They impede cross-functional collaboration and work. Creating a data culture is about everyone across the business understanding the value of data and how it can help the business succeed. And a good way to sow the seeds for a strong data culture is to engage key personnel in that data strategy, both in developing it and in its implementation. For example, if you're using data to better understand quality events, you'd better involve your quality manager in your data initiatives. Digital leaders have to start engaging people in the data strategy, stressing how it's going to benefit the organization and how it's going to benefit them. If certain individuals or teams are resistant or not really engaged, you can use the pain points that they have already to show how data can make their jobs easier and how they're going to personally benefit. Focusing on positive incomes and those small but meaningful wins they're going to have along the way will really help to smooth out the path for everyone. And then finally, implementing agile methods. You have to give your employees an open place to really learn, innovate, and experiment. Successful experimentation, it really requires not only in-depth analysis of the data and the ability to make swift improvements, but you also have to understand as a culture that despite your best efforts, there are going to be failures. There are going to be things that you got wrong. And there has to be a culture that makes that okay. Making mistakes is a really unavoidable part of some of your initial efforts at harnessing that data. And it's part of a rewarding learning curve. And a successful digital leader will understand that and implement that flexible culture and the processes that will allow them to learn and to take action and to pivot. Okay, so only 12% of quality organization staff have analytics comfort. Why is this important? Analytics influence every aspect of our existence, really, from the way we think and behave to how we work and do business. Think about this. I'll just throw a couple of statistics at you. Every second, millions of records are generated by organizations on social media and in the consumer space, leading to a humongous explosion of data of at least 2.5 quintillion bytes produced every day. By 2020, we expect to see a 4,300% increase in annual data generation. Google alone processes 3.5 billion searches per day and houses 10 exabytes of data. I didn't even know exabyte was a thing. So even though digital data created by consumers is doubling every 2 years, almost all of it remains unused or unanalyzed, and research indicates that 99% of new data is never used. It's never analyzed, it's never transformed. A lot of organizations are really sitting on a gold mine of data, but they don't have the resources to analyze the data in order to frame effective policies. There was a study by IBM that found that key executives globally spent about 70% of their time finding data, but only 30% of their time analyzing it. Most of the data that we have remains untapped because there aren't enough data scientists to analyze the data and derive meaningful information from it. Now, 82% of our quality leaders are investing in training their current employees and teams on emerging technologies. Businesses are exploring how they can unleash that value and derive the meaningful insights. But this doesn't mean that we have to hire armies of really hard to find data scientists. There's a concept of the democratization of data and analytics that you may have heard about before. And that really is about making relevant data available and understandable to the business users who need it when they need it. It also means making sure that the people who work with that data have enough of a skill set to be able to derive meaningful insights out of it. We don't need, it's great to have data scientists, but not everyone needs that skill set. They need a basic amount of literacy, and we need quality leaders who can promote analytic comfort and enthusiasm for generating insight with data and support for doing so. So you need some training to give them that comfort level without worrying about if they can use Python or R. The ease of use of today's best analytics tools, there are so many of them and they've gotten so good. It opens up a lot of possibilities for sharing data across the business because you don't have to have that business analyst power user level of understanding in order to get value from your data. We don't all have to know how to perform machine learning or NLU, but we should have a general understanding of what it is and how it can benefit us so that every business user can be looking for opportunities in their realm to innovate. Where that could be applied, they can be looking for areas that we might be able to optimize. We need to have basic skills. We need to be able to review a dashboard. We need to understand how to read charts and graphs. And we need to learn how to be less afraid of the word data. And if organizations can create the right environment by adapting their workflows to enable those technologies and reduce some of that fear around using technology, they are really going to benefit. You bring the information to the people. You don't make the people figure out how to get information out of data, and you make it everyone's job to try to understand the data that's relevant to them. In addition to developing digital literacy within our ranks, companies are focused on hiring. More than half of quality leaders are hiring experienced talent to meet the requirements of emerging technologies like AI, IoT, and advanced analytics. Companies definitely lack enough people with the needed skill and expertise up and down the organization chart. Most companies are undergoing some kind of a digital transformation. They're all trying to make those improvements. And many companies are shifting their focus toward recruiting employees with the ability and the ambition to utilize existing and emerging technologies to drive those better business outcomes. So if you're looking to get on the job market soon, sharpen up your data skills, I think is one message that we all can take from this.
Yeah, I keep trying to share this information with my daughter who's headed to college, but she's not really interested in the whole data mining and analytics track, but we'll see.
And that's very common because people's perception of data, especially if you were older, like myself, is often based on their one or two encounters with SQL or a database, and how terrible that was for them. But it's so different now. The tools that we have to explore and understand our data can become really exciting. And finally, more than 60% of quality organizations have redesigned their processes within the last 2 years to better align with digital business imperatives. We really have to be open to changing our processes and the way we've always done it to ensure that we're getting the right data. I'm just going to close out this section with a quote from Greg Ray at Deloitte. He says there are fundamental building blocks that will have to be put in place, whether that's from a technology standpoint or an operating model. And so digital transformation really becomes an enabler. It becomes a bit of a risk mitigator on one hand and an accelerator of strategies on the other. Once we understand the historical dependence on documents and the reasons why that reorientation is inevitable, adopting a data-centric mindset really makes sense as the next step for life sciences companies. Data and analytics can be used for quality control, helping to identify faults in products before they leave your facility. There are biopharmaceutical manufacturers that have been able to precisely identify and track the specific parameters that most affected yield variation for their vaccines. And by making improvements in those areas, they were able to increase yield by 50%. There's just a lot that we're going to be able to do. So let's dive deeper on a few of the areas that are outlined on this slide. As you can see, there are going to be a lot of areas where we're utilizing AI in the future. As we think about predictive technologies, we're creating systems that analyze every incoming product complaint and predict related risk. They analyze every deviation. They analyze machine sensor data. They're analyzing all of this incoming data and predicting what the outcome will be in every possible context. And that is just becoming a regular part of business. If you can track the historic data and give those machine learning algorithms examples, you can predict what is going to happen, given a new input. So it's going to be an exciting time. Intelligent process automation for human error prevention. Humans are no longer going to have to monitor workflow and nudge people along in the process. That's going to be handled by AI. And as people create workflows, they'll be given recommendations to optimize workflow for efficiency and improve performance. There are so many things that are going to happen that will help to diminish the number of errors and the amount of human involvement you have to have in your processes. Prescriptive analytics for optimal manufacturing design. At MasterControl, we are working on machine learning models that identify the materials most commonly correlated with product defects, and recommend alternatives from your suppliers. We're working on models that analyze cycle time and make efficiency recommendations. There's just going to be so much that we're going to be able to learn about how to optimize the way that we perform and our compliance and the quality of our products and services. Self-service data visualization for accessible and actionable insights. At MasterControl, we believe you should have access to all of your data across the product lifecycle in one place. And more than that, you should have easy to use, modern, accessible dashboarding and visualizations, including insights that are specifically tailored to each user's individual roles and responsibilities. So, just like we were talking about previously, you bring the insight to the people in a way that is relevant to them, at the time that it's relevant to them, without making them go look for it. The role of technology should be to make our work easier, more accurate, and more timely. Modernizing quality's approach to data. Let's dive in there. So it has never been more important for quality teams to make data-driven decisions. We have so much information across the entire product lifecycle. We have to be able to access that information. We need to be able to analyze it in our quality data platforms. And we have to be able to extract meaning and actionable predictive insight that helps us to transform our business practices. Ideally, that extraction of meaning isn't work that your individual organization is going to have to take on. That should be the work of your QMS partner. You feed in the information and the QMS tells you what about that is relevant. Your job will be to ensure that you're adopting the right platforms and processes and giving your people access to tools that are tailored to their specific needs and concerns. We see that as the future of that intelligent, connected product lifecycle.
Yeah, Sue, and I think, this is a great place to talk about your tech stack and then having integrations between your tech stacks. Because certainly there isn't going to be one size fits all, one piece of technology that's going to do everything. So you will likely, especially with, as you get into like specific industry sectors. But as you start to look at your tech stack, what are the ones that have those integration capabilities so that as data passes back and forth, we're not having to re-enter or resubmit information, but instead it's just keeping that data quality and that data integrity consistent throughout the product lifecycle.
Absolutely. And, we talk about a QMS across the product lifecycle. You also want to think about whether or not your QMS can integrate with the other systems that you run, that you use to run your business. So do you have data export capabilities? Do you have data blending capabilities? Can you take in information from other systems and look at that in the context of quality? So it really becomes a larger and larger discussion where you think about these interconnected systems and how they can bring value to your business. Only 22% of companies employ tools that provide real-time visibility into quality metrics in their manufacturing, engineering, supplier performance, and customer service activities. So this is an alarming statistic. It's so important to have usable analytics. We talked about how we don't need armies of data scientists. We don't need business analysts. We need more people who have comfort with analytics. And most people are really, they don't use R, they don't use Python, but they need real-time access to information. And they need that surfaced in a way that is consistent across the organization, where it's easy enough for them to use, that is real-time. You have to have timely insights. Finding something out the next day is not sufficient, especially if you're thinking about predictive use cases. as we move, to really integrating AI into our processes, there is a maturity scale in machine learning where you move from, understanding where you're currently at and getting information about that to understanding what you need to be aware of in the future to having the system make decisions for you. And it can only do that if it's really getting timely, understandable data that everyone has access to. So MasterControl's connected quality advantage is something that we are really excited about. You need a single platform for managing quality data throughout the product lifecycle in order to simplify and accelerate your company's transition to digital leadership. And that is going to really inherently position your organization to leverage data intelligence. If you look at, what we're talking about with less complexity, having the fewer siloed systems, having that data all together in one place, having a standardized experience so that you can actually, conduct meaningful training and give people that analytic comfort they need in order to be able to really operate and take advantage of the technologies, having faster global deployments. It enables you to have smarter process with flexible design, native connectivity, and dynamic workflows. And then really greater insights. You have a unified architecture, all of that data in one place, using the same metrics, using the same measurements, with the same meaning. You have that single source of truth, and you also have a large data set for machine learning and AI. We no longer just look at the features we're bringing to our products solely on the basis of what is the benefit of this feature. We also think about what the benefit will be to you by having that data to do machine learning and AI over. If there is data that we can bring into the system that is a part of your process that maybe we haven't captured before, we are more strategically looking at what it's important for you to be able to understand so that we can create that large set of training data that will help you to really accurately understand something predictively. We've already discussed how regulators are making a shift from a one-size-fits-all approach, but Dr. Amy Abernathy, again, sums it up pretty well here. She says if we're going to really change the way that we use data, both within the agency, but also across all biomedicine, the agency needs to fundamentally prepare the ground. So again, those who might be worried that regulators will be hesitant with newer technologies can feel confident in moving forward instead of falling behind. The ultimate outcomes of data connectivity. So when you have a digitally connected, data-centric organization, you're going to establish a single source of truth for accurate, actionable data. You'll know that the decisions that you're making are based on good information. They're informed. You're not just operating on gut feel and kind of organizational historical knowledge anymore. You are effectively leveraging data intelligence with prescriptive and predictive models. You understand the past, you know what's happening today, and you understand what your future looks like and how to impact it. So you'll know how to beat your competition. So you know how to improve your organization, you know how to become more productive, and you know how to beat your competition. Streamline compliance, you're going to see improvements in workflow optimization, process optimization. You're going to be able to remove some of the burden of document shuffling and tracking from your people. You're going to have an immediate understanding of the risk and impact of a quality event. These things are happening. They're quickly becoming an exciting reality for all of us. And I really hope that you'll join with me in being excited about the future and embracing that digital, data-centric future for all of us. Thank you.
Sue, as you were going through that slide, I was thinking back to something you said earlier when you said, imagine if you walked in and 50% of your data was gone, and how in current situations, people are really, 50% of their data is probably trapped and they don't actually. Imagine the confidence level that companies will have when they know that the data integrity is high. They have that single source of truth, and the decisions that they're making are really going to improve their business. It's just, it resonated with me a little bit more when you hit this slide right here. So thank you so much for all of your time and your insights and really valuable information that you've provided for our audience today.
Thank you. I'm excited to be here.
Okay, I think we have reached the Q&A section. So we've been talking about data-centric quality for quite some time. We've talked with customers and prospects and other people in the industry, and there are a few main themes that always come up when we're talking about this, and Sue's going to go ahead and address those for us today. So the first one is the difference between predictive and prescriptive analytics. Can you go a little bit deeper into defining what the differences are in those areas?
Absolutely. So, there is an analytics maturity model that we commonly understand, and it usually starts at the beginning with basic reporting that we're all kind of aware of, where you get those tabular reports and you can dig through that and try to figure out what's relevant to you, and you hopefully you're getting enough information in that tabular report to really understand the current state of your organization. That's kind of the first level. And then the next level would be descriptive. And descriptive is where you're getting some kind of an insight, whether it's from a report or a chart, a dashboard, that helps you really understand what is happening in your business and what you should be aware of. It is really giving you accurate, usable information about current status. And so, kind of strategic insights, performance evaluation focus, things that are descriptive and timely and really help you understand, this is our current situation. And that is always, of course, zoomed down in so that it's relevant to your specific focus area. Then you have diagnostic analytics, which you don't hear as much about, but they're really important. That's where, you not only understand what is happening, you understand why it's happening. Where are the problem areas? What can I address? That's where you're doing intelligent root cause analysis and cause and effect correlation and identifying different trends. You're saying these are the things that are contributing to why we're in the situation we're in today. And you're using statistical analysis and forecasting and data and text mining and NLP to get to some of those insights. Then the next step is predictive. And that is where you're understanding what's likely to happen. What can I change about the future and how? You're using that advanced predictive modeling. You're using predictive risk assessment. You're really saying, given everything that I know about the past and the current situation and all of the factors that contributed to that, what can I expect in the future? What is likely to happen? Then prescriptive is where you want the system to show you what steps you should take. You want it to recommend the best action. You want it to really optimize processes and decisions for you. But that's usually at the top of the staircase because you have to really trust it. It has to be a reliable partner at that point in time, because you're basically saying, show me what steps I should take and what I need to do, or just handle it for me entirely. Take it off of my plate. I don't want to be involved in the decision. And so that's really the top of the maturity ladder because it means that you trust that data. It means that your models are reliable. And it means that, you're trusting it to evaluate all of those predicted future options and prescribe action and recommendations. You're taking kind of the human element out of it. So, that's kind of the difference between predictive, prescriptive, and the other steps on the ladder.
So that was really insightful. Thank you, Sue. So another area that often comes up, as you know, anytime you are utilizing new technologies, along with that comes some sort of investment in that technology. And do you have any tips or information that you can share with our audience about how to convince the leadership team to make those investments into quality systems that are really more data-centric?
Yeah, I think some of it goes back to what we were talking about previously with really having that data champion on your executive team. But that presupposes that the CEO already saw the value of that, or the board. And so getting to that point where they are willing to value data at that level, it really involves helping them think about digital investment as something that is not just an abstract concept. So, a lot of times, since data has always been free in some respects and just something that you store, until you make it relevant to them, they're going to see that is kind of a core part of your business model rather than something that is essential. And signing off on a spending plan becomes something that is difficult for them because they don't see the value. So you have to show them where the value areas are. You have to kind of do that initial work to make it relevant to them, show them how you will monetize the information in your organization, and help them understand the value both of data that's missing. What would happen if this data wasn't something that we can access? The value of what you could be doing with that data, what you could be understanding, and how that could change the way that you're operating, and also helping them understand, from a competitive perspective, what risks you face if you fail to innovate and if you fail to make that transformation. That really is probably one of the largest factors, helping them understand someone in your industry who will do that, or the benefit that you could create if you were the leader, in your particular industry, if you were the ones that had that information that your competitors didn't have. If you could figure out how to increase product yield by 40%, what would that mean for your business? So make it relevant to them, and then it becomes something they can really get excited about rather than just talking about, well, we need a data warehouse.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I think, and that innovation piece is always, if you aren't innovating and you're staying stagnant, you aren't going to remain competitive. So then you have to be able to then illustrate with real metrics what that value would be. So, okay, thanks again. That was great. So you had also mentioned analytics comfort in the presentation, and we are breaking into new territory, expanding into new frontiers. Do you have any resources or suggestions for people on how they can go ahead and start improving their analytics comfort, growing and learning their own skill set?
Yeah, I mean, this is such a hot topic right now, and the benefit of that is that there are so many resources out there. So if you as an individual are wanting to kind of increase your own personal capabilities, you can use Pluralsight, Coursera, Udacity. There are just so many different resources out there that you can utilize. There are countless ebooks and books on Amazon and courses that you can take from, through e-learning and distance learning. You also can take free trials of a lot of different products. When you hear analytics, and we're talking about reporting, we're talking about dashboards, and there's so many different programs that you can try out and get a feel for how much simpler it is today than it used to be. So getting hands-on with the technology often is a way to really quickly increase your comfort level, because we're intimidated by the idea of it, not necessarily so much the reality of it, especially with today's tools. But if you're talking about your organization and how to help them gain that analytic comfort, I think it's the same thing. You need to think about training to help them understand what you mean. People tune out when they hear a lot of data-oriented buzzwords. So you really want to show them exactly what you mean by it. And there's another, kind of trick in that analytics means a lot of different things to a lot of different companies. We all think of it in different ways. So get a good understanding of what it means to you. Create sensible training that helps them understand fundamental concepts. Fundamental, they don't need to understand, again, like how to use Python and how to use R, unless you're building a machine learning team, and then you want somebody who already has those skills. But they need to understand, how to navigate, what's a measure, what is an attribute, just really fundamental concepts. Create some PowerPoints, help them understand what is natural language processing. Not because you want them to do that, but because you want them to be thinking about their business area and how that kind of innovation could benefit. And, if you have somebody leading that initiative who is excited about it, that excitement will kind of resonate throughout the organization. So just view it as an exciting thing, and people will catch the vision.
Okay, well, thank you again, Sue, for all of your time today and answering all of those questions. Just a reminder, if you did ask a question during the presentation and we weren't able to address it at the end today, Sue will be following up with everybody individually via email. You'll also be receiving an email from MasterControl. In that email, you'll have a link to the on-demand version of this webinar in case you want to share that with anyone else in your company. Additionally, MasterControl just published the ultimate guide to quality. And there's a lot more information in there about data centricity and moving to the data-centric model. So we'll provide that link as well in case you want to dive a little deeper into the subject matter. At this point, I'd just like to thank everybody for joining us today. We hope you enjoyed the content, and I just want to remind everybody to stay healthy and be safe out there. Have a great day.